by my parents, yeah. That's what I thought.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Winnetka Village Council regular meeting for September 20th, 2022. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask everybody in the room to either mute or turn off your cell phones or other electronic devices. I'll ask the village clerk to do a roll for attendance.
Trustee Apatow?
Here.
Trustee Dahlman?
Here.
Trustee Kripe? Here. Trustee Dearborn? Here. Trustee Hanlon?
Here.
Trustee Swerk?
Here.
President Rins.
Here. Item 2 is the Pledge of Allegiance. I've asked Trustee Kripe to lead us this evening. All right, item 3 is quorum check. Rob, you want to go ahead and do a quorum check?
Certainly. Again, reminder, the first meeting of October is moved to the 6th due to the holiday. So is everybody okay with that date? All right.
I will not be there.
Yep, Chris, I have you gone already.
So Andy, you're sliding over.
Got it. And then the October 11th study session?
Yes.
Okay. And then the last meeting is the 18th, regular meeting for that month. Okay.
Yep.
Awesome, thank you.
Is the budget in October?
Yes, it is. I'm sorry. We should have added that. Hold on just a second.
Rob, the 18th, I may be a little late. I'm teaching, so
Okay.
as soon as I get done.
I'm sorry. Trustee-
It's the 18th, the 28th.
Yes, I just wanted to confirm it. I didn't want to go from it. Yes, it would be October 28th, Friday.
That'll be a full-day session for those who aren't familiar with our process. That'll be a full-day session here in council chambers to review the entire village budget, which will be proposed by Rob and all of his department heads. Okay, item 4 is public comment. This is the time of the evening where anyone in the audience who would like to address council, on any item that is not on tonight's agenda, you're welcome to come to the podium and share your thoughts with us. Is anybody here for an item that is not on the agenda? Seeing none, I will close public comment and we'll move forward on reports. Trustee reports. We'll start down with Tina and work our way down. Tina, any report?
No, because I haven't attended, whoops. No report, because last month's plan commission was canceled, I think, right? So.
No report?
I was just going to thank everybody who turned out for the flag planting on the 11th. We had a great turnout. Flags went in about 45 minutes. And we had a ground crew of a number of 2 to 4-year-olds. And they came out in about 20 minutes. And then we sorted through that pile in about another 45 minutes. So it was really good, though.
The Kripe family was a model of efficiency in setting that thing up. It was awesome. Rob, any report?
I can't top that, no report.
Okay. Village attorney, any report?
No report.
Village manager.
No report this evening.
Couple things. Rob and I met this afternoon with the folks over at the Cook County Forest Preserve and their legal representatives, trying to suss out the various items on the intergovernmental agreement, which is obviously flowing out of the MOU. We're hoping to be seeing that
October?
in
Potentially.
October,
Earliest could
because
be October.
it's because of some issues with wildlife endangerment. We really need to move this thing forward, and we're trying to be as expeditious as possible so we can actually begin work on the site with tree removal in December. That was a really good meeting, and I don't know. It's funny, when I sit up here sometimes, I just like to muse about what it's like to live in this community. And you know, I had my caucus interview yesterday, and they asked me about, you know, why I do this and everything, which got me thinking a lot. And so last night, I'm walking around town, as I usually do with my dog later in the evening, and you know, there's always little touch points about living in a lakefront community that is a reinforcer. And last night was one of those nights when I was walking around, and there were these like mini fog banks that were rolling in off the lake because the wind was coming in off the lake, right? And they were drifting across the play fields, and it was just an amazing sight. And it really made me think about the power and the importance of Lake Michigan. And how connected we are to that wonderful resource, and how we really have to always be thinking about how we can best take care of that. So, if anybody wants to know, that's the sort of stuff that Chris thinks about when he's out walking his dog, so. But it was really a cool evening, and to see these little fog banks, it's like, wow, that's a Lake Michigan thing, and
Oh, yeah.
they don't see that in Schaumburg or Elgin or even Park Ridge, but it's some of the things that makes living here in this community really special. Exactly. And that's why we've had one of the best summers on record this year, too, so. Anyway, enough with the weather report. Okay, item 6, approval of the agenda. Does any trustee wish to remove any item on the consent agenda for a separate vote? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the final form of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. We'll now move forward to the consent agenda, and I'll ask the village clerk to read the items on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Approval of the Village Council meeting minutes for August 16th, 2022, regular meeting, and September 6th, 2022, regular meeting. Approval of the warrant list dated August 4th, 2022 through August 17th, 2022 in the amount of $1,842,734.39. Resolution number R96, 2022, 93 Green Bay Road parking lot contract, and resolution number R98, 2022, Village Hall bell tower repairs. Resolution number R99, 2022, monitoring wells abandonment change order. Resolution number R101, 2022, waiving competitive bidding and ratifying agreement with Mead Incorporated for emergency traffic signal repairs.
Great. Thank you, Rob. All right, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda by omnibus vote?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Kripe?
Yes.
Trustee Dahlman?
Yes.
Trustee Swerk?
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn? Yes. Trustee Handler?
Yes.
Trustee Apatow?
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you. Moving along to ordinances and resolution. Our first item this evening is resolution number R100, 2022, a resolution calling for federal and state action on gun safety and violence. This is for adoption. As a follow-up to the council listening session on August 9th, we will consider approval of a resolution calling for federal and state action on gun safety and violence, protecting our communities from gun-related violence. I had hoped that we would be able to convene into a study session format this evening to discuss the options available to us to potentially amend our current codes related to safe storage of firearms on private property. Our village attorney has advised us that there's a state preemption and a recent Supreme Court ruling that seemed to limit our ability to expand these requirements. That said, as a group, we need to become more educated on these issues, but regretfully, our lead attorney, Peter Friedman, was not available to guide and inform the conversation this evening. And despite Ben's high competence level, Peter has led us through the process this far, and I think continuity in this conversation is really important. So I prefer to defer that conversation to a future study session when Peter is able to join us, and we will be sure to notify the public through our weekly e-blast and other electronic media once that date has been nailed down. At this time, what I thought we would do would be to first open the floor to public comment on the issue, and then we'll bring it up here for opening statements from the council, and then move forward with deliberation. So each of us will have a chance to individually take a crack or share with us, and then we can kind of open it up for a conversation and see where it goes from there. So with that said, I'd like to open the microphone up for anybody who'd like to speak on this issue.
I'm Cheryl Taglia. I have a message from Kitty Brantner. To our village trustees, thank you for holding this meeting.
Excuse me, can you just bring that mic down?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you for holding this meeting. Thank you for the leadership you're showing on this issue, and thank you for realizing how non-political this assault weapon ban is. Our neighbors were shot at because someone had access to a weapon designed to murder as many people as possible as quickly as possible. They and their children now have unspeakable trauma that will accompany them for the rest of their lives. A holiday that celebrates our country will forever haunt them. Children who taught their parents what to do in an active shooter situation will grow up with emotional scars that will likely never heal. The reason I cannot be here in person tonight is because I am on a plane to Washington, D.C. For the second time, we will be rallying at the Capitol to compel the government to pass a federal ban on assault weapons. In July, we rallied and marched, and we met with legislators. 2 weeks later, the House passed the federal ban on assault weapons. Now it's the Senate's turn. I cannot underscore enough how important a public stance from local government and law enforcement is on this issue. It gives me greater motivation as I head into more meetings tomorrow. As a mother terrified to educate her children in this climate, I'm hopeful Winnetka can continue to lead here. Thank you for listening. Kitty Brantner, Winnetka.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Come on up. Hi, Lauren.
Good evening. I'm Lauren Harper. I'm sure most of you probably know that already. I would love the opportunity to thank all of you on the board tonight for the thought that I know you have given to this very difficult topic, and for approaching gun safety in our community in a non-political and a dispassionate way that puts our children and our community and our safety at the forefront of this discussion. As we move forward tonight to pass this resolution, we, to urge our state and federal leaders to pass stronger laws on assault weapons and safe gun storage requirements and an array of other gun-related issues. I would like to remind all of us, both on the board and in the room, of the power of one individual and also the power of many, because each of us has both of those things tonight if we choose to use it. Tonight we come together with a collective consciousness, I think, that tells us that we can't live in fear of gun violence. It's just not sustainable for us or for our children. And I know that while a lot of us tonight really do wish that we could have passed stronger village code about safe gun storage and banning assault weapons, we're not left powerless just because we can't do that tonight. If there's one thing that I've learned being in the gun violence prevention space for the last 3 years, it's that advocacy really works. It's why we're here tonight. So I just would love to ask each one of the members of the Village Council to become an advocate for the intention behind the words that are in this resolution, because passing it tonight is easy, but actually making it a reality and advocating for it is much harder. As we move towards the November veto session in Illinois, our legislators are actually working to form a package of laws to pass in the gun violence prevention space. And they tell us that nothing is off the table, which is really exciting. But time is actually quite limited between now and November, and we have their ear. So just please don't let this moment pass us by. We all need you to individually take the time to tell our leaders, both at the state and the federal level, that this is what our many collective voices have asked for and advocated for here tonight. I actually have a list of all of the Illinois House members who are taking part in the working session that are forming this piece of legislation, this package of legislation. I can provide you with their emails and their phone numbers. And I would just encourage you to please take the time as our representatives to reach out to them and tell them that you have broad support in our community for this resolution and that you expect them to implement these measures at the state and federal level. Additionally, we would really appreciate it if you would use your voice as the leaders of Winnetka to push New Trier Township High School to speak out openly and proactively about safe gun storage with the families of over 4,000 students. I know I've said this to you before, but suicide among teens is up 53% in the last 10 years, and gun violence is the leading cause of death for children in the United States. So we have to step up and insist that our schools do everything, but most importantly, New Trier does everything within their power to encourage families to lock up their guns, because that is, in fact, within their power. So let's be the reason that our children can go back to being kids and stop worrying about their safety. Let's be the reason that people think twice about leaving a firearm out if a vulnerable teen could accidentally find it. Let's be the reason that our community not only feels safe, but actually is safe. And let's lead on this as a village, knowing that others will follow. So thank you again for this resolution, and the hard work actually begins now. Thanks.
Anyone else? Leila?
So, as a Winnetka resident and a mom, I want to thank you for everything that you're doing to help keep our community and our children safe. As a secure gun storage educator who lives with the statistics and the stories around suicide and accidental, intentional, and mass shootings, I also want to thank you. Because I have those stories and those statistics in my head every day. And while I understand that there are certain things that we are legally bound by, I think that there are a lot of things that the village can do in terms of educating people about secure gun storage and safety that we need to be at the forefront of. Having talked to community members across our villages, the number of people, including gun owners, who don't understand what secure gun storage actually entails is shocking. So I think that as we move forward, and are there more things that we can do? Yes, of course, there always are. But I want to also be able to think a little bit outside of the box and not think so much about what we're limited by, and think a little bit more big picture, and think of all of the ways that we can reach out to our community and educate them in this space. So again, what you're doing tonight is significant. We know that everything that you do makes a concrete difference in this area. So again, I'm excited and hopeful about what we're going to see tonight, and I want to thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jean Bishop. I live about 2 blocks from here at 832 Cherry Street. And before I say anything, I want to thank President Rintz for the remarks about the lake. I walk 6 blocks east on Cherry Street every morning at dawn with my dog. And I go down to this beautiful beach, this little Cherry Street beach that has this beautiful little pier. And I go out at the end of that pier and I watch the sun come up. Did anyone see the sunrise this morning? I'm going to email you all a picture of it because I took picture and video. It's breathtaking.
I'm a night stalker, not a morning person.
Yeah, well, I'm a morning person, and so I get up, and this beautiful pink sun came rising up out from the water, and so I'll email it all to you tonight.
Great.
So yeah, I do appreciate that, and one of the things I do on the edge of that pier is to pray every morning, and I ask God to protect the ones I love, my 2 children, my neighbors, and my community, my church friends. And that's what we're here about tonight, and I'm so grateful. I just want to add my thanks to the ones you've heard already, that you are taking on this subject and you're taking it so seriously. So this is my sister Nancy and her husband Richard. She was 25, he was 29, and they lived 2 blocks that way when they were shot to death. And Winnetka is a community that has had its share of gun violence. And so we have, I think, a unique voice with which to go to our state and federal government and say that we carry these wounds. And we know that we live in a community where there are all these young families moving here now because they want to escape the threat of gun violence. They want to come to a community that values the safety of its children. So I am a public defender. And I do constitutional law all day, and so I'm kind of a nerd that way. And so I read the Heller decision, because I remembered it when it first came out. I just want to quote what Justice Scalia wrote in that decision. I'm quoting, "Like most rights, the right secured by the Second Amendment is not unlimited. It is not a right to keep and carry any weapon whatsoever in any manner whatsoever and for whatever purpose. Quote, nor does our analysis suggest the invalidity of laws regulating the storage of firearms to prevent accidents." And he goes on to talk about all the other things that you're allowed to do about regarding possession of firearms by felons or the mentally ill, carrying of firearms in sensitive places like schools and government buildings, and the sale of, quote, dangerous and unusual weapons, i.e. assault weapons. So, there's currently no law, constitutional right to have assault weapons. None. And if you want to know, I asked Nancy Rotering, the Highland Park mayor, who the NRA fought all the way to the Supreme Court and lost.
I know that that's in the sights of the gun extremists, but the fact is that we have the power to say we are not going to have assault weapons in this state or in this country or in this village. So, you know, one of the things I did before the meeting tonight, I had never read it before, because I wondered what was the oath that you all took, the oath of office, and they read about the Athenian oath. And it talks about civic duty, and I know that's why you're here, why you're giving your time, and again, I'm so thankful for that. And I know you take to your deepest heart of hearts your civic duty to protect the lives of your children here in this town. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hi, I'm Natalie Ernest. I think many of you heard from me by email this week. I have lived in Winnetka for 4 years. I have 2 children at Greeley. So I just want to quickly read a short version of the letter we sent you, just for the record. And just to remind you, this was signed by 308 residents of Winnetka, including the school board president, a former trustee of the village council, 2 PTO presidents, a preschool director, an OBGYN, a neurosurgeon, many financial services executives, because we live in Winnetka, teachers, moms, dads, grandparents, veterans, students, and a trustee. First, we thanked you in this letter for opening the conversation up to the residents of our community about firearms. You didn't assume what we wanted. You gave us the opportunity to speak on our own behalf and on our children's behalf. We think everyone in attendance that night would agree Winnetkans want you to lead on enacting common sense regulations and ordinances pertaining to firearms. It's not a political issue, it's a public safety issue and a public health one. These are prudent, evidence-based steps the council can take to strengthen the sense of safety and security that makes this such a special place to raise a family. I'll skip all of the statistics you've heard so many times, but I will do the safe storage statistic because it's so important. Research shows that secure firearm storage practices are associated with up to an 85% reduction in the risk of self-inflicted and unintentional firearm injuries among children and teens. 85%. In short, we asked you for 3 things: to put sensible village codes in place that require safe storage of all firearms. That's why it's extremely encouraging to hear that you are looking to follow up on that. So ideally, tonight is the first in a series of steps that the village council can take on our behalf. Second, we asked you to continue underscoring to the police department, as you've already done, to take action on educating our residents and themselves on red flag laws, firearm restraining orders, FROs, otherwise known as. And third, we asked you to stand with Highland Park by passing a resolution calling for state and the federal government to ban all semi-automatic weapons, high-capacity ammunition cartridges and magazines, and body armor. I think this same resolution was passed by Wilmette and Glencoe unanimously in the last week. Just last week, we heard from Superintendent Tess and Chief Ornstein. All of us from District 36 got information that our children would be participating in safety drills and lockdown procedures in the next week. My daughter is 5 years old, and she will be practicing staying quiet in her kindergarten classroom next week. If this can become familiar to children as young as 5 years old, it seems reasonable to us that the village can also take action to reduce the likelihood that these measures are ever needed here in our little community. So I do want to thank you all again for your service and your efforts to keep us all safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lizzie Kelly, and I am a resident of Winnetka. I live here with my husband and 3 children. I also grew up here. Thank you for engaging in this conversation and for your attention to this issue, which I truly believe is a matter of public health. Winnetka prides itself on being a safe town. A child breaks their arm, and there's 2 police cars, an ambulance, and a fire truck on the scene within minutes. I feel very fortunate to live here, and I'm appreciative of all the village and police department do to ensure the safety of the residents. It is in that spirit that common sense gun regulations seem like a no-brainer. This community has seen firsthand the devastating impact of gun violence. I will always remember when the Lori Dan shooting took place and I was locked in my classroom at Greeley School. Lockdown drills weren't a thing then, and neither were school shootings. My parents were lucky that day. They were able to pick me up from school, knowing that I was safe and that I had not been exposed to the devastation that occurred at Hubbard Woods. Their dear friends, however, received the worst news that parents can get. Their 8-year-old son had been killed. At the time, the shooting seemed like an anomaly. The sheer thought of a child being shot at school was too horrific to imagine it happening again. Tragically, the intervening 35 years have proved that quite the opposite is true. Yet we cannot allow ourselves to believe that mass shootings are the only problem. Gun violence is an epidemic in this country, and ready, unregulated access to firearms is unquestionably contributing to the crisis. Many of those students and families that were directly impacted by the Lori Dan shooting, many of my friends were also at the Highland Park Parade. They had to relive their trauma because a 21-year-old man who was clearly quite disturbed was able to access a weapon of war. When is it enough? The village cannot continue to wait for somebody else to act. Our community needs to honor its residents and neighbors who have been impacted by gun violence through action. Implementing these common sense gun regulations would show the community's commitment to doing so. I greatly appreciate your consideration. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Come on up. Hi.
So I'm Jackie Ramo. I live in Winnetka as well with my husband, my 2 kids. I think we moved here 2005, so I'm kind of one of the old ones now. It's very bizarre to see all the young families, and now we're the ones that are like the old people. So anyhow, I've been also doing this work, this gun violence prevention stuff for about 10 years now. I got involved after Sandy Hook, the shooting at the school. And I can tell you that in those 10 years, I've gone to a lot of events that have survivors that speak. We've had a couple of people speaking today, and you know, every time it's devastating to hear their stories. It really is. And I guess, you know, I came to the listening session that you all had and walked out of there feeling really great because, you know, we gave you lots of statistics and a lot of information. We've had, you know, personal stories. Everyone seems very, you know, open and willing to work on this, which is great. But I didn't realize, and I bet hardly anyone knows about this preemption law in Illinois. And I didn't know until today. And so I'm a little thrown by that and upset. And to think that we have the vast majority of the people that live in this village that would be on board 100% with safe storage law. I guarantee it. We could do the work and we could get people to sign. No problem. We have all of the villages around us agree with this same thing, and yet we can't take action on it because why? This preemption law, I find it crazy. And so what I would like us to do with you, you said you were going to have a study session on that. I would love to be involved in it. I know that we have a lot of really smart lawyers too that can help as well and figure out how we can get around that. I know that the state probably, hopefully, will take action, and then maybe that will moot the problem. But I also don't want to wait for the state to take action. You know, this is our community, and at the local level, we are the leaders in our community, and we need to be the ones taking action for our own neighbors and ourselves and our kids. So, let's have that study session. Let's see what we can do. And then in the meantime, I want to reiterate what some of my friends have said, which is that, in the meantime, get on the horn and use your power to talk to the folks at the state level and really let them know, like, listen, our entire village is behind this. And all the villages around us are behind this. Highland Park was 6 miles away. We all know people. 7 people died, 43 people. We have the kids that have, committing suicide. This just happened in our own community. I mean, this is important. So anyway, let's do that. And thanks for what you're doing. We're going to keep working.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kate Casal McNally. I'm also a resident of Winnetka. I want to start by thanking you all for your service. Many of you, with the exception of a few of our members of the community service, are volunteers. You volunteer your time, and that is not lost on me. I appreciate so deeply your commitment to our community and to your being here, so thank you. I also want to thank you for your thoughtfulness, your representation, and for your courage as we consider these important matters before our village. I apologize for my tardiness tonight, but honestly, I wasn't going to be here. I wasn't going to speak. I had no intention to be here tonight. I was moved to throw on my March 4th t-shirt and to drive over to be part of this momentous moment in the history of our village when I was tucking in my 4- and 6-year-old daughters tonight, who go to Willowwood Preschool and to Greeley School. I was going to jump on a Peloton ride, take a shower, call it a night, but my 6-year-old said to me, "Good night, Mama, I love you." And I thought about how many other families in this village, in other neighboring villages, and in our country do not have the benefit of hearing those words from their children anymore. I wanted to ensure that the myriad families who live in now and are moving to our beautiful village are represented and are heard. So again, thank you for your volunteerism, for your service, and for your courage.
Hi, everyone. I wasn't going to talk tonight, but here I am. First of all, God bless you all for being here. This is so important. I mean, my child was in Hubbard Woods, and all of her friends. And I can't believe this is still going on. At the time, we thought it was like a bolt of lightning. We thought this was never going to happen again, that it was just an odd thing. Who would do this? Who would do this to children? And I had moved from an area that was a little rough, and I was looking for safety. And you can't get away from it, unfortunately. I'm sad that it's gotten worse, but I'm here. I have a grandson going to Hubbard Woods School now. He lives with me, and my daughter, who was in the school, lived with me. And I could go through the whole day for you guys, but I don't even think I can. I mean, you wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe it, and I don't even know if you'd want to hear about it because it was pretty rough. To be standing there wondering if your daughter's going to get out of that school, and to be looking, calling the hospitals to see if she's under a gurney or what's going on. Is she at the hospital where I used to work? And knowing her friend was there, I mean, I could go on. It's really heartbreaking. But I'm glad everyone's here because it hasn't changed. And I think I wasn't going to come tonight. I was a little tired too, and I thought, if I don't come, what's going to change? If we don't all show up, nothing will change. There's no reason. I really wish that they could find a way to reinstate what took place when they banned the assault weapons. They got to figure out a way to do that because it was taken away. I don't know why they can't just reinstate it. But thanks for listening to me, and I'm praying for everyone that we all get through this and we push forward and we get it done. Thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak this evening? Seeing none, I will now close public comment. Thank you all for your thoughts. And now, as I indicated before, we'll go through with the trustees. I'm going to work in alphabetical order because little do you know, this is how I think about you guys, so. When I'm trying to make the list. So Andy, you're first, so, but before I turn you loose, you know, the only comment I have on this, up at this point is, Winnetka, for me, has always been my safe place. You know, you go downtown, you work, and I work in some very, very difficult neighborhoods and some very underprivileged areas, and, you know, understand that the people living in those communities, the fear that they live with day to day. And over the years, I've always come home, and it's always been a safe place, completely safe. And it hurts me to think that people think now that it isn't a safe place. And certainly nothing we can do can change what's going on in this issue on the national level. But, you know, we can continue to reinforce the fact that things do need to be done and that we do need to move things forward on the state and federal level so that we can call this our safe place again. Oh, sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you had something to say. You're welcome to come up if you'd like. I don't think your boss would like that too much, though, would he? Anyway, I don't know what the answer is. I just know that you know, there are people in this community who now don't feel as safe as they did when I first moved here. And that's painful sometimes to think that that the world has changed so much that we can't call this our safe place. It's a safer place for sure, and we want to keep it safer and safest to the best of our ability. So I think this resolution has been put forth as an attempt to at least move the conversation forward and make a statement to our representatives both in Springfield and in Washington, D.C., that we're relying on them to do the right thing. And to, again, I think, you know, Moms Demand Action and March 4th have both, you know, made a really good point. This is not a political issue, and it shouldn't be politicized. And it would be sad if it were, because, you know, this is about people's lives and about safety for our children and for the people around here. And for God's sake, a week ago, somebody in Mark's department picked some guy up driving around Winnetka with a freaking rifle, right?
It was a handgun, but it had a 50-round magazine.
Oh, great. Right here in town. And a mask. What the hell is going on? Okay. Andy, I'll hand it over to you.
Are we alphabetical which way? You have a, A goes for C. You do have
Andy, Bob,
oh, first
John, Kim,
That's new.
Rob,
Third
Tina.
is really
I was like, what's going on?
That's how you think about it.
Yes. When I have to do the list of who's going to be here, it's Andy, Bob, John, Kim.
We now have an insight into Chris's mind that we probably wish we didn't have.
I mean, we need to vote on that.
Good luck changing that one. Go ahead,
Thanks,
Andy, I'm sorry.
thanks, Chris. Thank you all for coming out and for the work that you put into this, and for those of you that have suffered because of what's happening, I would say sorry, but that's not enough. And I never signed petitions. I signed your letter, which is maybe weird because I think it was directed back to me, so I guess I signed a petition to myself. I grew up with guns. I grew up in Minnesota. Everybody had guns. I took gun safety when I was 12 years old. I think I shot 44 Magnum when I was 8 years old. It threw me on my butt. It probably was not a wise thing. I'm not anti-gun. But I'm deeply disturbed by the way we failed our kids. And that's the only way you can say it. You can't say we need to do this for our kids because we've already failed them. And the only question is whether we're going to continue failing. It seems like, and it's not just our kids. We've failed our law enforcement. We put cops out on the street. We don't support them enough. We have these lunatics that want to take support away from the cops while we do, I'm going to swear now, fuck all on guns. And it's an entirely unacceptable situation. And I don't know what the hell is causing it, except I think we've become a nation of people obsessed with rights, and we've forgotten that with rights, you have responsibilities. And we have completely abdicated our responsibilities. I'm glad Jean mentioned Justice Scalia. I'm a big fan of Justice Scalia and his opinion in the Heller decision. He was right. There's a hell of a lot we can do within the constitutional framework that exists, and we're not doing it. We're not even close to doing it. And what I think that stems from is, and Chris talked about this, the way we politicize everything, and what Moms Demand Action has done so well is to take the politics out of it and to say, let's take a factual approach, let's diagnose this thing. It's a complex problem. There's a whole bunch of things causing it, and you've looked at a lot of those different aspects, and it somewhat reminds me of stormwater, right? Because when I first joined the council 8 years ago, everyone was pissed off all the time about this damn stormwater thing, and it was so complicated. And I remember when I was first, starting to speak about it, it was like half the residents were going to hate you no matter what you did. So I was like, well, I don't really know anyone anyway, so it's fine. But it was like, there is no fix unless you throw the stuff out into Lake Michigan, which, is our greatest asset, right?
You almost did.
We default to this stupid binary thinking because as a species, they think we're kind of lazy, right? And we didn't do the work, but what we did after, we kind of realized, yeah, there's some room for improvement in this plan. We started doing the homework, and it's been a lot of work. We've just started construction after 8 years of doing that work. We've spent millions of dollars. We've spent, I want to say millions of hours, and that's just Chris and I. We have not done that on this issue. Stormwater, as far as I know, has not killed anybody. We can replace the carpet in the basement. We can't replace a child. We can't create the safety that we should have. So I signed your letter. What you're asking for is absolutely within, and as a lawyer myself and someone who also likes to geek out on the law, is absolutely within the constitutional framework. It just is. You can't shout fire in a crowded theater and say free speech, right? When there is an emergency, we have the ability to take action. What I find disturbing is in 2004 at the federal level, the assault weapons ban was allowed to lapse. And I think the message was, well, let's let the states take care of it. And the states didn't do anything. And in 2013, the cowards and the idiots in Springfield said, well, we can't do anything about it here, so we'll let the municipalities take care of it. You have 10 days. So do it within that 10-day window. So I think what you're asking for and what this petition asks Springfield to do is eminently reasonable. I think there's a lot more we can and should do, and that's where we need to really spend the time in the study sessions. We're not going to get it done tonight. It's complex. But there is a lot that we can and should be doing. But we should do something, because how stupid would it be if the feds say states, you do it, and states say municipality, you should do it, and then the municipality says state, you should do it. It's like an endless round robin of stupidity and laziness, and it's unforgivable, and people are dying. So thank you for your efforts, and hopefully we won't be having the same conversation year after year after year.
So any thoughts on the document, Andy?
Oh, yeah, the only thing I would add on the document, I thought it was really well done. I would change in the whereas paragraph on page 44, where it says, but recognizes the ineffectiveness of local firearms regulations. I would say the inadequacy. And the reason I say that is because I think ineffectiveness suggests we're helpless and there's nothing we can do. I think there's things we can do. I don't know what those things are yet, but we need to figure out what those things are.
Which one from the top?
First page of the resolution, last whereas. I would replace ineffectiveness with inadequacy. Also, I don't think we asked for action on body armor in 2A, and so I would add body armor.
Okay, what we're gonna do is Rob's gonna run a list, and then
Okay.
once we each get our individual shot, then we'll deliberate on all the proposed changes and see where we end up then.
Okay. That's all I had, though.
Great. Well, thanks, Andy.
Yep.
Bob, you're up next.
Well, Andy, that was good summary of where we are in the world, that's for sure. The thing that struck me about some of the comments that were made so eloquently here is that there were comments about the school system, there are comments about other communities and so on. This is a holistic issue, and I guess I'm not totally aware right now of where the schools stand on their gun safety processes, and I think we should be, because we should be this is not, when we talk about different taxing bodies and this and that, this is really not a different taxing body issue. This is, everyone should be thinking about this together in Winnetka. And unlike Andy, I'm not a gun person. I haven't shot a Magnum. You know, so I have a lot of agreement with what's going on in the conversation right here, quite honestly. The thing that strikes me as being, you know, just kind of a very complicated issue, and I was here when Nick Corwin was murdered. I was here when Nancy Bishop, can't remember her married name, was murdered. And so the idea that it can't happen in Winnetka is ludicrous. I mean, it has, and you know, we're vulnerable just like our friends to the north. There's no question about that. So I'm glad that we're addressing this. In terms of this document and where we are, and I've thought from the beginning that the advocacy document made some sense, and I have a couple thoughts just on the document itself, but I really think the two-pronged effort of our village code and ordinance, we need to do that, as Chris says, roll up our sleeves and do that. But I guess a suggestion I would make on that is that we come in very well educated on what we can do. Maybe we can go further, and I think that falls in Ben and Peter's lap a little bit. I would suggest having a full memorandum review of where our code stands, where it could possibly be pushed and pushed and pushed. We have limits. I mean, I don't know that we want to do something that would just invite a massive lawsuit of some sort, but we can push and push and push, see where it can go. I'd like to know where the other bodies in town are on this. I'd like to know where the school systems are, and so that we can be cohesive. So I think this is a nice document. I think that our code and what we can state through possible tightening of our code and so on probably says more about where we are on this village than the advocacy document, which I support. On the document itself, not to go on, the one section, and I guess I would defer to the legal people on this one, would be item 3, and I know there's been some conversation, other trustees have had questions on this one, and that's the immunity issue. When it first came out, and Rob, you and I spoke, when it first came out, it talked about manufacturers and sellers of firearms for their negligence, and I thought that our whole advocacy document really zeroed in on assault weaponry and that type of thing, and so I see that the assault weapon language was added to that, sellers of assault weapons, And then down near the bottom, it says, again, marketing and sale of firearms. I sort of wonder if we should focus that on assault weapons. But the bigger question for me, and I don't have an answer on this, is this even something that is something in our purview? And Ben, maybe I'm not asking you for an opinion on this now, but the others are things that I think that can be done. I don't know about the legal issue related to immunity, holding the manufacturers liable for any gun violence. I don't know. And if it's something that's beyond the scope, I guess what I would like in this document is, anything in this document I feel should be something that we can do, that is common sense, good policy, something that we can do and maybe move forward on beyond the words here. But if there's something in here that is just outside of our bounds, I think it would be potentially detract from the document. So that's the only one that I had a question on. Other than that, I'm pretty much in support.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Well, I'll have Ben opine on that when we come back and discuss these things. John?
Good.
Next up.
Thanks for everyone talking tonight. It's great. And what I find interesting, again, we got people with guns, people with no guns, no guns, but it doesn't really matter. What's cool about this and the study session we had, how cool and calm the whole session went. Walking in, I was expecting, people yelling, screaming, both sides. This is so normal. I mean, it's a great process. Thanks for all of Trustee Kripe's information. I mean, that was really good information to know. And I do look forward to learning more about what we can do legal-wise, obviously, without pushing the limit like Bob said. We don't need Winnetka to become the protest village of the nation, but we want to move as far forward as we can to stop this stuff. And I do look forward, Lauren, I forget your last name, mentioned, give us some email contacts. That'd be great. That would be good. Awesome. Great. And then picture of the sunset, or sunrise. Good, thank you.
Anything on the document, John?
Yeah, I do kind of agree with what Bob mentioned. Everything, we're kind of looking towards the assault side of things, and all of a sudden it went to all firearms. So that's something definitely to look at. Thanks.
Okay. Kim?
Okay, well, first of all, thank you all for your very thoughtful and eloquent
Mike?
Kim, pop your mic.
presentations tonight, and to the listening session. I appreciate them. I spent a lot of time on this today, including doing a lot of research on my own. At this point, I have my stories too, I guess, about certain incidents with guns. I've been here 35 years, so was here on the horrible day Nick Corwin was killed and when Nancy and her husband were killed. I also personally have known 3 individuals, 2 teenagers and an adult man who've taken their own lives. None of those were, the 3 suicides did not use a gun. Most teenagers statistically do not use a gun. So that is certainly a concern I think we should be concerned about in our community, but linking that issue with the ban of assault weapons and some of the other issues in this resolution, the somewhat disconnect troubles me a little bit. One of the things, and so even though and my uncle was murdered with a handgun, so that does hit close to home. However, as I sit here, it's not about my personal point of view or my personal experience. It's about what I think is right for Winnetka and what Winnetkans want. Overall, I do feel that we do need some additional time to hear from the community on this. This resolution was publicized on Friday. And while we've heard very eloquently from these ladies tonight in the listening sessions, I do know there are people out there that might not necessarily agree with all the content in here. There are certain, some of the things certainly it's very difficult to argue with. Who doesn't want us to have everyone to safely store their weapons? Who doesn't want good screening for someone that's going to acquire a weapon? I am concerned a little bit about some of the language that is not necessarily supported with fact, and some of it is language or rhetoric that's just taken hold without necessarily proof or substance. So I'd like to take some time to look at those. I can mention the things I'm concerned about now, if we want me to. For instance, the reference that violence is a leading cause of premature death in the United States. I looked and looked, and all the charts I found showed that. Okay, okay, so then right now our resolution says the American Public Health Association has found that gun violence is a leading cause of premature death in the United States, killing more than 38,000 people and injuring 85,000 every year. Okay, okay, thank you. That's not what our resolution says. So that is a point of fact I would think would need to be addressed. I also have concerns about just hopping sort of toward the end, taking on all of a sudden the repeal of the Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act. I worked for, and implying that just by their nature, that manufacturers and sellers of firearms are negligent, reckless, or fail to know their customers. I worked for Kraft Foods. At the time, it was owned by Philip Morris when all the lawsuits were coming down. And of course, it was interesting, just this sort of a side note, that almost everyone at Philip Morris was a smoker. Most people at Kraft Foods were not. And of course, they were trying to garner our support for their fighting against the litigation that was being filed against cigarette companies. And what they pointed out was, it's cigarettes today, it could be macaroni and cheese and mayonnaise tomorrow, and fast food and everything. So I do feel that trying to almost effectively take down a whole industry by doing this is outside of what we should be looking at. Sort of going back a little forward, or going back earlier. I've found a lot of information that would say, again, that the statement that's more of an opinion, assault weapons are military-grade weapons designed and configured for combat with the sole purpose of shooting as many people as possible, as quickly as possible. I have several examples that I can submit later that say that that just actually is not substantiated. That phrase is a little inflammatory. So. Also, I feel that the statement, assault weapons and large capacity magazines are combat weapons and do not belong in the hands of civilians. I would say there are some people that would say that's an opinion. So again, I'm going back to making sure that we understand and hear from people that have all points of view on this issue. I also would say that the statement that we must try to act to stop this, quote, threat to our American freedom and take immediate action to ban assault weapons. Again, I would say that some people would say banning assault weapons is a threat to American freedom. So I don't know if the phrase, to our American freedom is really needed. It certainly is a threat. Gun violence is certainly a threat. Let's see. And I'm also a little concerned about point 4. Again, providing stricter rules for the issues of FOID cards. I feel that's a little too vague. Certainly, law-respecting citizens right now are going through the process and can get a FOID card appropriately. Just saying that it should be stricter is a little too vague, or I think it's a little too vague and might be too much of a hindrance to people who legally want to obtain a firearm. But sort of saying all that, I would like, perhaps after we're done, or we hear from everyone, I would like to propose that we don't vote on this tonight, but we just considered it presented, and we give the community a little more time to review it and comment on it.
Okay.
That's it for now.
Is that all, Kim?
That's all.
Okay. Rob.
Thank you. Again, thanks for being here. It's interesting, Chris, when you're talking about being a safer space. I can't tell you how thrilled I was to get my daughter. I have both my daughters up here, one from New York, one from the city. I'll leave it at that. And 3 grandkids now in the schools. it is peace of mind to have them here, and I agree we should be doing something, making a statement here, but I love also what you say, we talk about common sense, and I understand where Kim is coming from to try and define things so we don't dilute or somehow hinder what we really want to get through right now, what we can get through right now. And also, the laws, including red flag, which would have prevented Highland Park, I think we discussed, are as critical for immediate impact to actually have these laws enforced, to help our police deal with this and give them a lot more latitude. But the laws that we need to enforce are, I think, as important as the guns, because some people will always find ways to get guns. But if we can prevent what we can try and prevent what we can. I'm in pretty much agreement throughout here. I do think that there are a couple things that I talked to you about. One is 3. It's difficult on immunity, revoking immunity. I'm not looking to protect negligence, but this is where the common sense is hard to figure out, because you're now talking about a legal product. Would it be great if all the AKs were banned? Yeah, that'd be great. But we think we've got to continue to pressure Congress to do that. But to say immunity, then they'll go in the next video games next. It's a lot of what ifs, but there's bringing pressure to bear on Congress to get rid of the AKs. I'm all for. I'd love to get them out. But putting them, using, I understand where oftentimes they want to go is they want to put the companies out of business through lawsuits, and that's on legal products. I'm not sure if that will be a hindrance to what we're trying to do on the bigger picture, which is to make a statement now. I agree also on the stricter issuance of FOID cards if there are law-abiding citizens that want to get a FOID card. I'm not sure leaving it to the state of Illinois or endorsing that is where we should be. I completely agree with much more rigorous screening of applicants for FOID cards and make it much more difficult to get or make sure the screening is done. So I'm not sure about the first part of that sentence. I definitely agree with a more rigorous screening for the applicants. Those are my main issues if we're going to stay with a common sense framework for what our statement's going to be here. But other than that, it's time. I want to protect our kids too. I want to do it with common sense on things that we can actually make an impact on, and then try and go for the other ones with Congress.
Great. All right, thanks, Rob. Tina, you get to wrap up the first round here.
Well, I appreciate all the advocacy, and I think it is, as you said, you do have to show up, and that's how we keep moving things forward. I look at this, it is a resolution, right? It's not a binding, enforceable ordinance, and so in that context, some of the broader statements I'm fine with, because, for instance, seeking a resolution to encourage our state and federal legislatures to do something more with the FOID card, I think that's appropriate. It's not within our jurisdiction to fashion some sort of law, right? Having a broad statement to say, work on improving that system, I think is appropriate. I'm a transactional attorney, but I actually started my career defending airplane crafts manufacturers in airplane crashes, right? So for a long time, I have been in support of the repeal of the Firearm Protection Act. Every product in the United States has gotten safer over time because of litigation and negligence claims. And for me, I don't understand why perhaps the most deadly, and that's cars. You can look at all the case law and you can look at all the things. Why our car company is not insulated, or an airplane craft manufacturer or an engine manufacturer is not insulated from the same sort of negligence standards. I've never understood that. So I have no problem supporting that, because I think products do become safer. We know that there is technology for fingerprint-enabled triggers in lots of things that really have not come to market because there's really no need. And until the industry self-regulates itself, and which I think our free market is designed to do. And I support, everybody playing on the same fair, a fairer playing field, and then they have an incentive to innovate and an incentive to make their products safer. Not to get all wonky on you, but I went back to my law school reunion this past weekend, and I sat on a torts class, which is just basic common law negligence. And there was all these hypotheticals about canoes with holes on them and canoe renters who may be drunk, and whether there's a responsibility of the person renting the canoe. And there is, right? I mean, we put a responsibility on manufacturers to make the products safe, and so I have no problems with that. Look, I think like so many mothers in America today, and fathers and grandparents and everybody, every time I drop my kids off at school, I wonder if they're going to come home. And I have 2 children who have sat through active shooters, actual ones, not here in Winnetka, obviously, but it's terrifying, right? And so I think that we're seeing an unprecedented moment of concern and action on this, and I support the resolution. I could wordsmith it a little bit, but I'm not going to right now.
Okay. Thanks, Tina. All right, let me think this through for just a second, okay? Rob, you got a list now? Andy, I just want to get clarification. I know that you're supportive of the resolution, but this number 3,
Yeah,
any thoughts on that? You didn't.
Tina's absolutely correct. The gun industry is the only industry in the U.S. where we've, for some reason, immunized the products from normal tort liability. And I also am a law geek. I just took the solicitor's qualifying exam in England and Wales. So I studied 1,000 years of English common law history. And in
Beresford?
1,000
Are you a Beresford?
freaking years of common law history, there's only been one law immunizing a class of products. And it's this one. It's bizarre. It's absolutely indefensible, it's unconscionable, and it's plain and simple. It's just pure dirty politics that got this thing passed. There's no good reason for it. When I was a kid, guns existed. I was able to get guns for hunting. We didn't have this tort immunity thing. This was implemented as just a cynical ploy. It is disgusting, and it should be repealed.
So
You said it nicer.
No, I think you are more direct, like always, Andy. And we can call you Mr. Solicitor now.
Okay, well, I would like to kind of just work on this for a second, and then
Yeah.
Kim, if you want to try to delay things, we'll go to that next. But I want to get clarity on this number 3. Okay, the 4 of you, Bob, Kim, John, and Rob, stated that doesn't make you so comfortable. You've heard now from 2 of your colleagues, and I'm just curious: is there any change in how you're thinking about that based on what you've been hearing?
Well, again,
You mean Section 3 now?
Yeah, Section 3.
yeah, I mean, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to dive into that, but as I read it, there are gun shops, and there are gun manufacturers, and this says immunity to liability for the manufacturers, the Smith & Wessons and so on, and sellers, Joe's Gun Shop in Racine, Wisconsin, for their negligence, recklessness, or failure to know their customers. I'm just not sure what that means.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, so in order for someone to have a claim, they have to show a failure to exercise reasonable care. Reasonable care is determined by simply asking the question, what would an ordinary gun seller, for example, do in a similar situation?
So that's a gun seller. That's
For a
Joe-
seller.
that's
For a
Joe-
manufacturer, would be, what would the reasonably prudent guns manufacturer do? And that's how these products evolve for the better over time. You're not measured, in other words, against, was somebody hurt by a gun? Did they buy from you? It's not strict liability. This is immunizing against ordinary negligence, and that's why it's extraordinary.
But
So for example, like a gun shop owner, if somebody comes in who is visibly drunk, irritated, hot, bothered, maybe irrational.
I
There is,
can't-
there is a
I-
duty of care there.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That I understand.
Yeah.
It's where you go beyond that, that I have a little, take the airline industry.
Yeah.
We have the FTC, or we have a government,
And I represent Boeing.
okay, well, all right, but we have a government, we have the pharmaceutical industry. There is a government agency overseeing approving products, approving airline standards. All I'm saying on this is that I feel like we're getting into some waters that go beyond what we're trying to accomplish for the village of Winnetka.
Yep.
That's all. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong on this, Andy.
Yeah.
But it just, I think it sort of takes away a little bit from what we're trying to do here. And then, as we go into our code and ordinances, this is clearly not going to be part of that. I mean, you know, this goes way beyond.
It's a resolution.
It's a call to action.
I understand that, but I would personally, again, and I'm not saying you're wrong or not, but it just seems that the scope of our resolution should stay to some of the comments that were made at our study session,
The comments,
made
that's
tonight, and I think this kind of goes beyond it, but that's just my opinion. Would I not vote for this because it's in there? No, I would vote for this, but.
I'll just address one other thing about why this particular thing. So as someone who's not completely anti-gun, okay, the fact that people are not held to an ordinary standard of care when it comes to guns has enabled people to act irresponsibly. And ultimately, if that doesn't stop, it may not happen in this generation, it may happen in the next generation. What will happen is people will just say no more. And so if the concern is we want to protect the rights of individuals to own guns, this doesn't stop that in any way, shape, or form. This just simply says you are not immune from ordinary negligence. You have to act responsibly, just like they did before this law was passed. And America has had guns for a very long time, and no one ever had trouble getting them before this law was passed. Now, if the issue is, Tina and I have spent like a ton of time staring at this thing, which I understand, and as have the people here, if there's heartburn such that you guys don't think we could vote for that part of it today, I would say two things: you're wrong. And then secondly, we should throw that onto the study session and not abandon it, because I think it is the single most important thing that could be done to end gun violence in the U.S., more so than all the other stuff. Because in this country, we've recognized we're not willing to invest in the government structure like the EU does, which frankly doesn't work that well, where we just just like get into the minutia of everything. We don't have the capacity to do that. And so the way safety has happened in the U.S., frankly, is the common law of torts, expecting every person to act as a reasonable person. And what's happened since this law is passed is people have not been acting with reasonable prudence, and gun violence has gone up dramatically because there are no consequences. If this screwball piece of shit that shot up that street in Highland Park walked into a Walmart, and you could look into his eyes, and if anyone watched his YouTube video, right? No reasonable person should have sold him a gun. No reasonable person should have helped him support his FOIA card. His father did. I don't understand what he was thinking, but he did. So this is the only class of products in the history of the common law. It's crazy.
Right.
But I understand if you're, this is not something that we've delved into deeply.
This
How
is,
much of that, those examples though are about selling, not manufacture?
So, as Tina said, the trigger lock is actually a huge thing. It's a really simple thing. Your iPhone doesn't turn on unless you look
I
at
read
it.
it doesn't work if it's wet, your finger's wet.
So,
I-
this will work if it's wet.
Yeah.
This is
I mean,
really
that's an
simple
example.
technology, and it's actually extraordinarily cheap. Easily incorporated into a gun. Hasn't been done. This technology didn't exist before this law was passed. If it had existed before that law was passed, you can bet your bottom dollar that every gun would have it now, because it would have become, oh yeah, of course you do that.
And it would have the effect also of I don't even know what the statistic is, but it's a very high statistic of the number of crimes committed with stolen guns.
Yeah.
right? So if you are really looking to make society safer, you make it harder to operate the gun through whatever the trigger control is. But yeah, I mean, it solves a lot of ills.
Without legislating the crap out of everything, without regulating the crap out of everything, without saying, you know, without all the things that Americans hate, frankly, which is why they have wisely identified this as one of their core platforms. It's not like a periphery. It's number 3 on our list, but the reality is it's probably the number 1 thing that could be done, and people just don't realize it.
Hey, John, what do you
All right,
think?
so based on that, more information, very good information from Andy and Tina. I didn't put together the negligence side of that. No different than being an architect. I'm only negligent to my other peers in a specific area of work, in a town. You know, if I design this roof to meet all the building codes, like any other architect, and there's 12 feet of snow that it caves in and kills everybody, that's not my negligence. I followed everything I possibly could have done, like anyone else would have. So I take my comments away about number 3. Keep it in. Totally.
Okay, so now we're split. Rob, any other thoughts? Or modifications that would be palatable for you?
I get it. I mean, I'd love to see this go away and make real impact more than anybody.
How about a period where the first comma is?
I just think there's, I just like to look at, I get it.
And then delete everything
and-
else.
And I respect Andy and Tina's point on this. I just, in 40 years of business, I just look at unintended consequences that we don't even know yet. But I get the point, I really do. I do think they.
How about if we just put a period where the comma is in the first sentence, and then delete the rest of the paragraph?
But that doesn't impact this, even if we just left it as repeal the act, period.
Right.
We still, I would personally like to better understand what's in the act.
Okay, so, but I'm talking to Rob now. I'm coming back to you in a minute, Kim. If you just put a period there.
Hey, I'm not trying to protect these guys either. I just look at companies that are there are unintended consequences of where this goes. I wouldn't mind holding their feet to the fire. And I think, as I looked at it, I think I read that in Sandy Hook, they got around it by saying that they over-marketed to, that's how they got the Sandy Hook jurisdiction on, I think, $75 million to the families. They said that the gun manufacturer was over-marketing to this group, or in general. So I get it. I just need to think about it a little more. It might be okay to leave it in there or put the period. I don't mind holding people's feet to the fire, that's for damn sure, on something like this. So.
Where do you think I'll put in a period? Sorry.
After
Okay,
Arms Act.
After Arms Act, period, and then delete the whole rest of the paragraph.
But the good clarification on that is when it talks about the negligence side of it. If they want to go ahead and market to some group, it doesn't matter probably, as long as they were negligent in some action, I think. I'm not
Do we
an
know what
attorney.
do we know what the other statutes are? I mean, they're not even recited here, and I don't know what they are, if there are any.
Yeah, I'm not sure what
I'm
the
not sure
statutes
either.
are.
It's the protection of lawful
That's the big
commerce.
one.
And that's the
I mean, it's the same thing that applies to the liquor store owner who has a duty of care not to sell to somebody who's intoxicated, who's going to get into the car in the parking lot, right? These are all kind of the standards of. But if you can't tell that somebody's intoxicated because they come to you and they look normal and later blow a high, then you're not responsible because you're not deemed to be a separate investigator for everybody's condition. And that's why the standard is a higher standard. You're just not always liable. It's only if you're negligent and failure to exercise due care.
If you remove the statute, you revert to 1,000 years of common law.
Well, that's
Which is
my
always a
point.
good place to be.
Right, I mean, and that was the point, is that you repeal the statute, it doesn't change anything they just end up in the same playing field that every other company does, and I'm just trying to find the middle ground here to see if we can make this work. Otherwise, it looks like we're gonna have to pull it.
I think to Andy's point, I'm comfortable with putting a period. I think that makes sense.
And you could even say of 2005, you just, because I think that's, Rob, you raised a good point, what are the consequences? This is a relatively new law. I reveal my age by saying that, but
What year was it?
2005.
I didn't know that, okay.
See, we're here to learn, too.
But Ben, what's
Kim,
the?
well, wait, I told Kim I'd come back to her, so.
Well, I guess, to me, everything after the first comma is just, is describing, except another statute, is just describing what's in the Protection of Lawful Commerce Arms Act. So taking out the phrases, immunity to liability for their negligence, reckless, or failure to know their customers doesn't change the action, whether it's in or out. If it's repeal the act, it's repeal the act, no matter how we describe it in the sentence.
Right, so you would still not be for that?
Well, it sounds a little better instead of, using those terms of negligence. It's still the exact same action.
Yes.
It's just better clarification for someone.
Well, it's
layperson
taking out
reading.
all the inflammatory language and
But at the end of the day,
and getting to the
so,
point of,
I certainly don't like marketing to firearms to young boys, and we know there's so many things in our society, right, that get truly marketed to people younger than they're really supposed to be sold to, whether it's clothing, cigarettes,
Video games.
alcohol, and guns. So I certainly don't like that idea. I certainly don't want stores and manufacturers to be negligent or reckless, but I still feel like I'd like to better understand what's in this act. Not that I don't believe what you're telling me.
so you're holding tight, so, I mean, right now, it looks like we're 3 and 3.
Well, hang on, Chris, hang on. Because Tina mentioned the liquor store, the guy coming in drunk, buying from Benny, whatever. But that's not the liquor manufacturer being held liable. That's not the.
Liquor manufacturers are also liable.
Yeah.
But
If
if
they-
seems to be, this is where, again, not being immersed in law, I'm not quite sure where this law goes from the Joe's Gun Shop up to the manufacturer.
let me get-
And hang on one second.
Okay.
So liquor is, it's somewhat of a regulated industry. Drugs are regulated, pharmaceuticals are regulated.
Talk to
They're
the governor
overseen.
about that.
Maybe not very well, but, and, it seems to me, and the trigger thing, again, I'm not an expert on this, but that would seem to be something that should be an enacted law. There should be some oversight of the manufacturer, some of the technology with these weapons that these manufacturers should adhere to.
Well, they banned that.
Okay, well, what do you mean they ban?
Well, I think the better hypothetical, what I was going to say is a car accident with a brake. Okay, person brings their, and I could spend all day, I've always wanted to be a law professor. So a guy brings his car into the car shop, car gets worked on, brakes or something's worked on the car, gets into a car accident, damages, right? There always has to be damages for there to be liability. So that's one of the key things. So then, in that instance, yeah, there is liability potentially for the car repair place, but it could also be for the manufacturer. So it's not to say that it's, you can't get to the manufacturer for, if something was designed, if there was a design defect. One of the cases I worked on was the Hawaiian Airlines cargo door opening up, and even though there was human air there was a design defect, and so there was redundancy that's been put into every airplane so that never happens
So
again.
that's a design defect versus a trigger, some
So,
sort of
like on that
mechanism. That's
example?
not a defect that they
No,
have
and
to trigger.
you're raising a good point. So when Tina was talking about the evolution of products, they don't happen because someone goes in and says, your product doesn't have this amazing safety feature that it should have. That's not how the car has gotten safer. What happens is a car company gets sued because they do screw something up or whatever, right? But you get a healthy American competition happens. Volvo invents the seatbelt. They give the patent away to everybody, and they start making, and then Ford says, you know what, that's a really good idea, Volvo. I'm going to start making that because my customers are going to like it. Now, all of a sudden, Volvo and Ford are making cars with seatbelts. Now, General Motors is not making cars with seatbelts. And someone gets killed in a car accident, and the lawyer sues General Motors and says, you know what, the reasonable thing to do would have been what this industry has now moved to, which is seatbelts. You're the holdout, right? That's how you get an evolution without regulation, without litigation, without a level of government input that we are not ever going to be capable of in this country. That's how cars have gotten safer. That's how planes have gotten safer. So it's not where, so in other words, I'm not saying, yeah, you repeal this, someone can get sued for not having a trigger lock. No, you create the normal American competitive pressure that has caused our products to get better over time without regulating the hell out of people.
It's a good argument. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the theory would be that more law-abiding gun owners would want to have safer guns so that they won't get stolen, they won't be used in crimes. I mean, there's been a lot written about it.
Or going back to the seller, the people being employed at those places they sell guns, they might be a little more stringent on who's working at those places to follow regulations to make sure they're selling the gun to the right person. Because right now, they can't get sued.
Yeah.
Well, they could get sued, but there's no, you can sue anybody for anything. But.
No.
Okay, let's take a straw poll on this one so we can either leave it in. I'm proposing to just end the sentence after Arms Act.
Yeah.
But with that potential modification, where are we at, just quickly? Tina,
I'm fine with that.
John?
I'm ultimately fine, but the little explanation really it follows it, rather than just the act. If someone reads it in the paper, they're not going to know what it means. Not that I knew what it meant, even with it in there, until it was explained.
But they do know in Washington DC what it means.
Right, but at least,
That's where this
and
is
I do
going.
agree, maybe add a year.
Yeah, we're
That
not,
was something.
I mean, this is really intended to motivate our elected officials at the state and local
Right.
level, so.
Either way, I'm okay.
Okay, Bob?
Well, that was really the only area that I had concern with, so, I favor this resolution. I mean, so I'd jump on that, yeah.
Okay, Kim?
Regarding just three?
Yeah, just three, just putting the dot after
I'd
act.
still rather pull it out, just because I don't think it's sort of just out of blue compared to all the other things that we're talking about.
Okay, Andy?
Good.
Rob?
I want this resolution to go through. I don't want this to hold it up, because I think it's out of the, if we're talking about the common sense piece, and I get, I get, I just need some time to think about the intended consequences, because I see other consequences all throughout product history where lawyers just go from place to place and become billionaires on
Okay.
frivolous crap.
I'm not there yet.
I know. Not a
And
billionaire.
if it saves lives, let them.
Bad news,
If I look at the cigarette, I mean, it's just, you see, it has unintended consequences. If I could hold their feet to the fire and actually make this real and actually get the bad apples out in a heartbeat. I just need a second to think about what that really means. The rest of the resolution I can live with.
well, we have 4 votes for it already, so you can, I mean, the point is we have some consensus here to leave it in, maybe modified with this period.
And again, if tell me if I'm wrong, this resolution, we're going to take this and tear it apart, and not tear it apart, but go further to help, hopefully make
No, we're gonna work on the,
better rules or regulations for the village. This is just a resolution.
Right, I agree.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's where it's at. So it looks like that's gonna stay in a modified state with taking out the, I guess I wouldn't call it inflammatory, but, Kim, I think you stated it, that some of that was a little bit over the top. So, okay, Rob, I'm gonna count on you to just feed me items off the list as we went through this whole thing, so we can knock the rest of them down and see where we're at. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Before we go any further, Kim, you would,
I did, I'll give it a try. As I mentioned at the beginning, I feel that we really need to get some community input on, now that there's a specific document, and this document went out on Friday. I don't think the community overall has had a lot of time to react to it.
okay, that's,
Thank you.
you guys have had your time at the microphone. Now it's time for us to do our work. It might not be pretty and you might not like it, but you have to respect that every individual in this room has their own opinion, and it needs to be heard, and it needs to be heard in a courteous and civil manner. Go ahead, Kim.
Thank you. And since we do have 15,000 residents, not all are adults who could own it, I do feel that we need to give an opportunity for people to look at this carefully and have an opportunity to give feedback on it. So I would like to propose that we just introduce this draft resolution, perhaps subject to some of the changes everyone's wordsmithing and changes people have suggested, and let's say give 2 weeks for the community to reply and put it back on the agenda for adoption.
So are you making a motion?
I am making a motion
Okay,
to
go ahead.
introduce this resolution and publish it so there can be additional community feedback, and what should I say, revisit it in 2 weeks
All right.
or 2 weeks?
So I have a motion. Do I have a second? So I have a motion and a second. Like a roll call vote on this one.
Trustee Handler.
Yes?
Trustee Apatow. Trustee Kreip.
No.
Trustee Dahlman.
No.
Trustee Swerk.
No.
Trustee Dearborn.
No, I want to move this on.
Carries.
Okay, that motion carries. So Kim, we're finishing it tonight, one way or another.
Okay.
It doesn't.
Doesn't carry.
Excuse me.
So
Yeah,
the
it doesn't
motion,
carry.
Fails.
Motion fails.
Okay.
Fails, yeah.
that's why I have you two guys sitting next to me. Now the list.
Okay. All right, so I'm sure you'll correct me if I got these wrong, because you're all very good active listeners. Okay. Okay,
Premature death was the first one.
sorry. Yes, yeah, it would have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 6 whereas down from the top on page 44. American Public Health Association has found that that gun violence is a leading cause of premature death. So the question would be, do you include it or no?
So that American Public Health Association report is footnoted, it's footnote number 3, and it cites a CDC study from 2018, and that's what it's based on.
I guess the issue with this is the premature death piece.
It's phrased exactly that way.
Right.
is,
So
But, yeah,
I think some of us, including me on first read, because I'm not a lawyer and I don't study this stuff day in, day out, was just, I thought they were talking about the general public, that you're dying before you should die.
no,
Prematurely.
that is what it says.
yes.
That is
it
what
it
the
says.
CDC
But it's,
study says.
this is very misleading, that there are many things right before that. Cancer is number 1, heart disease is number 2. So it's sort of a misleading presentation.
I would move that we
I would
strike
say
it.
we just strike
You know, I think, I don't know if it really makes a difference.
Yeah, I don't think it makes
It's like premature death?
Or strike the whereas?
The whereas, if it's gonna, if there's concern about how it's, I don't think it
Doesn't matter.
changes the
Okay.
Yeah, that sort of is a blanket
Right.
comment, so
We all
people
good
will
with
get
that?
caught up in
Okay,
statistics
so
that are
we all
not
good with
really
that?
not.
That whereas is
Needed.
gone. Okay.
You guys, I only looked on one side.
Yeah, it doesn't make a difference to us.
Okay.
Thank
And
you.
then the last,
Next.
the next whereas, the last whereas on that page, trustee Kreip wanted to change ineffectiveness to inadequacy.
I agree with that.
Agreed.
I think that's a better word
Got
choice.
4 there? Kim?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, top of page 45, second whereas, I believe trustee Handler had a question on that section, whether it should be included.
The assault
Kim,
weapons
correct
are
me if I don't get
military
these
grade.
right.
No, I had that as Kim's too. Assault weapons are military grade weapons designed and configured for combat use with the sole purpose of shooting as many people as possible, as quickly as possible.
Okay, do you want me to pull up my,
Well, let's,
I mean, that
So
isn't what.
you've already stated it. I'd like to
Yeah,
hear-
I
I'd
think
like to
your
hear-
point is that it's opinion and that is a concern. I think you could simply say it's designed to shoot as many rounds as possible.
Sure.
I
No
mean,
matter
if
what you're
somebody
shooting at.
wants to obliterate a tin can, you know,
Or
with,
pumpkin.
right, or pumpkin,
good.
they
So
can,
replace
right?
people with rounds.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Again, I don't.
And
think
they
it
aren't
changes.
designed for combat.
If we're gonna,
Well, they originally were.
if we're gonna sort of soften that paragraph, it may be best just to pull it out, almost.
Well,
Because
as
the
the next-
paragraph before is talking about the
It's
people
very
that got
clear.
shot in Highland Park, and I wouldn't want to follow that up with something that sort of,
No,
That's
but that third whereas, the large capacity
the-
magazines are designed, again, for,
that could be, yeah.
sole
the same
purpose
thing.
of the shooter shooting
Which is, yeah.
fire repeated shots without having to be reload. I think that's fact.
Says this,
That's
yeah.
just what you said then, yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like if we change that second paragraph to kind of, whatever, change it, it ends up reading the same as the third paragraph that's already there, so either leave it as is or take it out would be my
Or do
suggestion.
you just change the third paragraph to have magazines, assault weapons, and military grade?
But they're
All
not,
as one item.
military grade are not in civilian hands since 1934.
Okay, they just say assault weapons and large capacity magazines are designed. I mean,
Yeah, just put it
Sure.
as one.
Say that completely?
so take out 2, modify 3, add before large capacity magazines, assault weapons in large capacity magazines are designed for the sole purpose of allowing a shooter to fire repeated shots without having to reload.
Yeah. You okay with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. That, you keeping track here, Ben? I only want to do it once.
I'm tracking Ben is, and so is Kristen.
Okay, Kim, another thing was I'm just going down the list here, was the assault weapons and large capacity magazines are combat weapons and do not belong in the hands of citizens.
It's sort of the same as what we were referring to as 2. That's an opinion. And they're not combat weapons, many people would say.
Thoughts?
However we characterize it, they don't belong in the hands of civilians. So
Right.
maybe we just assault weapons and large capacity magazines, strike out our combat weapons and do not belong in the hands of civilians.
Yeah, kind of same as number 3, except a different topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Is everybody okay with that?
I'm fine with that.
I'm okay.
Kim?
Okay.
Bob?
Yeah?
John?
Yes.
Tina, I heard you say yeah.
Yes, you did, sorry.
Okay.
Good at it.
Go ahead, Rob.
Okay, then the next one I had was, whereas the United States Congress and Illinois General Assembly, I believe, Kim, this was yours about
Threat to
American
Just
freedom.
take the phrase out, "to our American freedom," to stop this threat and take immediate action. My point would be, many people would say preventing them from buying a semi-automatic weapon is a threat to their American freedom. So I don't think it adds that much to the phrase.
Yeah,
I leave
but
it in
the
there.
whole contention is one person's liberty is infringing on other people's liberty to live. So I think that's why they put it in there. But again, the thrust of the resolution, I think, is clear. I don't have a problem if we take it out.
Okay. If it makes it easier to get it through, then let's do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't, everybody okay with that?
Take out that
Take it out,
phrase.
yeah.
Good.
Okay?
Take out, what are you taking out, the entire phrase?
To our,
To try to stop this threat to our American freedom, and so it just must take immediate action.
No,
no,
That's what I.
no.
just take out to our American freedom.
Stop this threat and take immediate action.
Oh, yeah.
Stop-
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
This is the same thing.
Right.
Next?
Okay, page 46, 2A, I believe trustee Fripe wanted to add body armor.
Yeah.
So it'd be assault-style weapons as well as high-capacity magazines, comma, body armor, except as needed by military and law enforcement. Did I catch that right, Andy, where you wanted to
Yeah.
include it?
Body armor, yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah, yes, I didn't realize you
Three.
could buy it, so.
Rob?
Oh, yeah.
Body armor? Kim? You want people to
Yeah,
buy
that's
body
fine.
armor?
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay, and then we were on 3, which I think
And we did 3 already.
right. And then 4, there were comments about, we call on the state of Illinois to enact stricter, with stricter not really being defined. So I think there were at
That was
least
my
2 comments
concern,
there. that-
stricter. I wanted to go right, to skip the first and go right to the second about having much stricter
Rigorous?
screening applicants. I'm not sure unless we're saying what stricter, I mean, it's,
What if,
if you're a lawful citizen, you want to get a FOI card, what is that going to mean?
what if we
Well,
replace
But
stricter
everyone
with-
thinks they're a loyal citizen that wants to get one. The process to get the FOI card is going to prove that they are capable.
No, it should, I agree.
Right.
I
Right.
couldn't agree more, I just
Right.
don't know.
I know Kim mentioned, well, a good abiding citizen
Well-
wants to
Well,
get
no,
a
but
gun.
what are stricter? I mean, that's sort of like.
We don't know what
such a
that means.
word.
Well, for instance,
open-
It means like 3, you can issue 10 a year.
Well, I get it. It took me a while, but I get it.
I mean, if in the hands of somebody, stricter means we're only going to issue 10 in Illinois per year.
Well, is that okay?
No.
What about,
Assault weapons,
what about just
no.
striking that, just we call in the state of Illinois to more rigorously screen applicants?
I couldn't agree more with the
FOI
rigorous
cards.
screening on these things.
What if it is, we call on the state of Illinois to enact enhanced rules for the issuance of
There
FOIA
you go.
cards to more rigorously screen applicants for FOIA cards and blah, blah, blah.
That sounds good.
Does enhance do it for at least 4 of you?
Yep.
To
I can live with
enhance,
that.
to
Oh.
enact enhanced,
Andy, can you read it one more time, please?
Yeah, so you replace stricter with enhanced. And then,
What do you say, enhanced? You strung some words together.
Yeah, and so take stricter out, replace it with enhanced, and then it's the same until you get to right after where FOIA is defined in cards, and then strike out, and we call on the state.
Yeah,
I think you'd have the "and" still there.
okay.
Yeah.
Wouldn't the "and" still be there, Andy?
Well,
And more rigorously screen applicants?
yeah, I'm sorry, you're right, Bob. And, right. So we call on the state of Illinois to enact enhanced rules for the issuance of firearms owners' identification FOIA cards and to more rigorously screen applicants for FOIA cards.
I'm good with that.
Or
Rob brought it
instead
up.
of rigorously, would you just use more enhanced screening of the applicants?
Well, they got to
Correspond with the enhanced on both? Just a thought.
Yeah.
I like rigorous.
Okay.
Yeah, for the screening? Yeah,
Yeah.
rigorous is good.
It sounds better than saying, what the hell were you thinking?
It still terrifies me that they send this to IDPH.
Right.
Well, right.
Ugh.
Okay, that was the last edit.
That was the last edit.
Yep.
Are we all clear on it, or do I need to go through it again?
I'm clear?
Are we good at this
Clear.
side?
I'm all clear.
Bob?
Yes.
Okay.
And the number, just to make sure, number 3 is a sentence, the period after the,
After Arms Act.
got it.
Do we want to put the year in that or no?
Good.
Just so
I
people,
think
so
it's-
people realize it's only,
It may have been amended, so I don't know.
Yeah, just put period, because then if we put the of, then I'd want to put.
right, revision 1, right.
As amended, and then,
Okay.
and then Tina would look at her blue book for how you properly cite.
I did pull up the act, so
Yeah.
I was looking at the act.
citation.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, back to me. First of all, I want to give all you guys a lot of credit. This is a really, really difficult subject with people with a lot of different opinions. And I think all of you who have been here a while with me know how I abhor bringing national conversations into this room. And this is one of the few exceptions. But I really appreciate the way that you guys have been able to work through this and figure something out. So I think that's really important, and I think it speaks to how we work up here. You know, you might not get everything you want, but, you know, we move forward, and I think what we've done here is something that's very reflective of the complete conscience of the community, not just segments that might be a little bit this way and other segments that might be a little bit this way. I think this cuts it right down the middle and makes sure that we all feel comfortable walking down the street and standing with pride that we passed such a thing, I think. So to get to that point, we have to have a motion to adopt resolution number R122
As amended.
as amended.
So moved.
Second,
Roll call vote.
Trustee Kripe?
Yes.
Trustee Dahlman?
yes.
Trustee Swerk?
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn?
Yes?
Trustee Handler?
Yes, with reservations, because I
Okay.
like to hear from the community.
Okay. Trustee Apatow?
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. And Kim, I did want to address one thing, because I've heard you say that a couple times this evening. And when we had the listening session, I reached out to the NRA, and Mark, what's the name of the outfit that provides us with the gun locks?
Project Child Safe?
No, the firearms industry,
Rep?
the Firearms Industry Association that is providing you with the gun locks.
Yeah, Project Child Safe. That's
Project Child Safe.
Project Child Safe.
I thought it was ISSF or something like that.
It might
I
be the
think they're-
entity behind.
I think they're tied together, but it's, the Project Child Safe
Is the
main-
program.
Yeah.
Who sponsors the program?
Oh, I have to get.
I'm having a hard
I have to
time
get
tonight.
that for you.
Anyway, that organization, I reached out to them.
It's a manufacturing
Yeah,
association?
it's the association for the
Dealers?
Firearms
Okay.
Association. And I told them, I said, we're having this conversation, we really want you to come out and provide us with your perspective. None of them came.
It's the National
Okay.
Shooting
And I
Sports
will tell you this, that when we sat here in 2013 or 2010 or whenever it was, the NRA was here in force. So I know that they come, but they had an invitation from the village president and in advance, well in advance of that conversation, and they elected not to come. So
Well, we know what
wanting to
happens
hear
often.
more from them doesn't make sense to me because they've had the invitation and they're not here again tonight. So I hear what you're saying about, but Penny used to have this issue too, where not an issue, but Penny used to want to wait until every single voice in the community was heard. And there was always this.
Well, I don't
need
have every
to
single
defer.
voice, but.
No. But that's what gave her comfort, was that she knew that everybody had time. But sometimes you just have to move. And this is one of those times, so.
I think directionally, Chris, everyone here is, I mean, with a few nuances, this is a
We're on
good
the same
thing.
And some reservations.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
without question.
But at the same time, I just didn't want to let the comments stand that we're waiting for other people to show up because, I've been in this seat on multiple occasions where a packet will go out on Friday night, like this one did. And on Tuesday night, there'll be 50 or 60 people sitting out here, so,
Stormwater.
well, and
Right?
others.
Yeah.
Well, and importantly for the record, I mean, everything is on our website, right? It's not like the old days where you had to,
Right. And
I
it's
mean-
announced with eWinetka with a subscription of 3,000 to 4,000.
yeah. So,
It's out there.
it's
Yeah,
out
and
there.
to add, everyone in the audience probably told a lot of other people that it was on tonight, so.
Yeah, you would think that would happen.
Right.
So, anyway, thank you all. This has been a tough issue, and I think we really worked through it well.
Chris, can I, just one?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I do think that the follow-up here on the review of our code is mission critical, and in a way, to get to Kim's concern, I think, this is going to be, the final version will be dispensed in all transparency to the community, that this was passed tonight as amended, and that we are going to have a follow-up session, and that we invite anyone and everyone to come to that session. We should probably have Ben and Peter and Steve Elrod and so on, a review that the community can see regarding our current code. So it's all out there, and anyone who wants to come and talk, if they want to talk about the code, they want to talk about a resolution, they can come and talk about it.
And to your point, I really would like, with Chief Hornstein, I mean, this is great and it's directionally correct, but there are things right now that have to happen to affect in the schools, and that, to me, are the red flag laws, things like that, which are going to have a more immediate impact if that's tightened up now, here, with our children. And so I'm looking at, there's no, whether you like it or not, didn't like New York. When New York got cleaned up, there was mandatory jail time for doing crime with a handgun. I mean, there's certain things that, there's no bail, it's just certain things that can affect now, and I'd like to bring that into the conversation. What from an order of priority to really impact what we're all talking about and are worried about with our kids and our grandkids. What are those things? How are those identified, and what can we do to make that happen?
You'll be at the table, too.
Well, for Rob Bahan, do you regularly meet with the superintendent? I think this is directed at New Trier. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, of making sure that we're all on the same page.
So,
Or that was Bob. That was your comment.
That-
Yeah,
I
yeah.
definitely thought that.
with respect to school safety and security, there has been regular engagement between the Winnetka Police Department, New Trier High School, District 36, and any of the other private schools that, want to take our hand. We do stay in touch on other issues as well. So the communication lines are there. Chief, is there anything else you'd want to add to that? With New Trier's addition, we've been involved in the security review with their project. We were in the previous one. It is a collaborative process. Sometimes there's a little bit of an arm wrestle, but it's a healthy tension.
Sure.
I would just say it's ongoing, it's never ending, it's always ongoing.
Right. Especially with the placement of a school resource officer, it's at New Trier.
Yep.
Good. Oh.
Oh, we have appointments.
Yeah, there's more work, sorry. It's all good work. Thank you. So we'll move forward. Item 9, old business. Item 10, new business. Item 11, appointments. Okay, my first request is that we appoint current EFC member Patrick Hanley to a full term as Environmental and Forestry Commission Chair. His term will expire on September 20th, 2025. Now, Patrick will be replacing Chuck Dowding, who agreed to step down recently from the position, and I've really been impressed with Patrick's credentials and his willingness to work hard and run a good meeting. And, you know, thank you, Chuck, for many, 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 many years of service. You know, he's done an amazing job leading this commission for the last, 8 years now, Rob?
Yes.
It's been quite a while, so.
That's great.
Great leadership, and you know, it's time for the next generation to take over, and I think Patrick will do a good job. So I would like to have a motion to appoint Patrick Hanley as chairperson to the Environmental and Forestry Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Dahlman?
Yes.
Trustee Apatow?
Yes.
Trustee Kripe?
Yes.
Trustee Handler? Yes. Trustee Dearborn?
Yes.
Trustee Swerk?
Yes.
Okay, and the second one, if you folks remember, when we were having these conversations on, when the heck was it?
Oh, was he the guy who said his Tesla is dirtier
Yes.
than,
Yes.
oh, awesome. Good
was
work, Chris.
Maybe afterwards.
No,
Okay,
he had
well,
all.
I'll go ahead and
He
announce
had
it
all the
now.
calculations, right?
Yep.
Right.
This is, I'm asking that we appoint Peter Eck to a 3-year term on the Environmental and Forestry Commission. His term will expire on September 20th, 2025. Peter is filling the vacancy from Chuck's resignation and Patrick's promotion. May I have a motion to appoint Peter Eck?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Dahlman?
Yes.
Trustee Kripe?
Yes.
Trustee Handler?
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn?
No one?
Yes.
Trustee Swerk?
Yes.
Trustee Apatow?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Haller.
I did have a request here to appoint Mark.
Funky.
What's that?
I had one more.
I know, I was.
I was going to ask for a motion to appoint Mark Haller, but because of a question that's arisen relative to the Music Fest, I've asked Ben to take this back to the shop and make sure that we're on solid ground, bringing him forward. So this appointment will have to wait to the next meeting, and Andy, hopefully you'll put him forth at that time?
Sure,
on my behalf?
yeah.
Okay. So.
On Mark, Chris?
Yeah.
Let's find a way to get Mark
Yeah,
on
involved.
here.
Yeah,
I agree, that's why I'm putting him up here.
Yeah, so,
There was a question.
yeah, I understand that, but we'd be fortunate to get Mark involved here,
Absolutely.
I agree totally.
so.
Okay, so item 12 is closed session. May I have a motion to go into closed session for the purpose of discussing the purchase or lease of real property for the use of public body, including meetings held for the purpose of discussing whether man, this is a mouthful. Discussing whether a particular parcel should be acquired pursuant to Section 2C5 of the Open Meetings Act, and to adjourn the open meeting automatically and immediately upon the conclusion of the closed session without the conduct of any further business or comments, question mark.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Dearborn?
Yes.
Trustee Kripe?
Yes, with
Handler?
reservations.
Yes. Okay. Trustee Swerk?
Yes.
Trustee Dahlman?
Yes.
Trustee Apatow?
That could be my meeting.
I like it. Good.
Are we staying here or going over there?
No, we have to go in the other room.
Okay.